into here in just a few moments. But with that said, just hope that everyone had a good one here, and we got a nice week in front of us here with a nice opening up in some of these markets here. So before we go diving into further detail into the charts, just good to note as far as our economic calendar goes today, we are nice and light on the board. In other words, no 8:30 figures due out from the U.S. Really, the main thing on the board, if at all, is just our final manufacturing PMI figure due out there at 9:45 Eastern. So just 15 minutes after our pit session opening, and then pretty much outside of that, we're in the clear there as far as data goes, and then we have a couple more points there tomorrow. But with that said, we got to come over here and jump into our charts here, including that of our daily S&P, which obviously we can see has had a nice extension in the overnight session here. So our overnight high 48.28 even, and our overnight low 47.77.75, right, which we just got done putting in here a few moments ago. So good extension in the overnight session. We know that even on Friday as well, we did have some high to low activity, unable to take out the high from Thursday's trading. So picking up a little acceleration, if you would, or better impulse to the downside here. So for one, we'll certainly want to note the fact that we're still holding and trading well below the previous day's low there, right? So 47.96.75. We not only extended beneath that point, but have been holding beneath it here as we come into the session today. And as we'll look at the intraday charts in a moment, we'll have a couple intermediate points to take into account. But outside of that, as we come down any further, it's a ways down there, but the bottom of our very large impulse bar that we had from the 20th of December, which for one, you have to recall as well, took us a couple days to even trade outside of that point, right? It took us 2.5, if not 3 days, to trade on the other side of our impulse bar from the 20th, and now we're just coming back down and trading a little bit below the midpoint of that mark. So it's a ways down there, so I'm not sure they'll be zipping right down there today, but 47.43 was that previous cycle low from the 20th, as well as we blow this up here a notch. The comes in pretty much in line with the daily EMA there as far as the ES goes. So we'll have our previous day's low. It's a ways up there, like we said, 47.96.75. And then as we come down any further, we'll be dealing with the rest of that bar from the 20th, which we'll see in much more detail here on the hourly display, right? So similar idea. We had damage done, right? It took us quite some time to recoup all of that progress, traded above the high, and now as we come down and unwind, we can see we still have plenty of previous data points in this region, so kind of monitoring here, it's the same 96.75 down to 81, because 81 also, we can see we've had several tests and trades into this area here with the ES, so we did trade beneath that point in the Globex session, right? We put in a deeper Globex low, but as we come down in this area here, as you'll see, the 43.25 is quite a stretch down there, so we'll keep an eye. We've had a nice impulse down, so what we can keep guard for is in case we form any type of continuation pattern or flag formation on either the hourlies or the 30-minute data to see if they want to go out and form yet an additional continuation pattern, since we did pick up some nice downside momentum. So we'll keep an eye on those zones there as far as the ES goes, but either way we slice it, nice to have them opening up a little bit better as far as their range goes. So nice activity there, stemming from the Globex session. And then moving on along, we'll want to also consider that of our DAX future here. Right, we had our balancing act there on the tail end of last week. We closed Friday as an inside range bar. And we'll load up this intraday chart up here in just a moment as well. But what we ended up seeing, and granted a lot of this started to unfold in the Globex session, but we left one sizable tail, or kind of that feeling of the test reject, if you would, in the case of the DAX. So what we did not see them do is make any type of higher high, as opposed to making the full retest up. We fell shy, so now we're coming back down and getting very close to our additional point of reference here. As far as the DAX goes, we would be looking at 16,795 as being the bottom of this prolonged range that they had built out for themselves. So failure to make the full test up. And then we'll keep an eye here on this 16,795 in the case of our DAX future. See how they want to handle that zone. If we were to take our intraday data, such as the 120-minute display, we can see, it's 2 data points, so, fairly significant cycle low that we'd want to be aware of there in case of the DAX feature of monitoring that. So for now, we could drop it down to a nice little 30-minute chart or an hourly chart just to bring it down a time frame or two, so we could just latch onto that previous low that we'll want to keep an eye on there in the DAX. So holding its own for now, but obviously a pretty sizable bar that we had in the overnight session. So DAX nice and active here in the early morning session. And then moving on along here outside of our index future category, we have that of the euro currency putting in quite the extension. For one, we'll start here with the dailies, and as we noted there last week, very interesting how we came down and traded very close back towards that 1.107. So we closed right on it there on Friday's trading, and then overnight we picked up a very heavy or thick selling bar, so we've come down in one shot here. Obviously we've hit the 20 period EMA here on the daily charts, which also coincides with them dropping back beneath 1.1 even in the euro currency. So daily EMA was down there at 1.098. We could just call it 1.099 really for the daily EMA on the euro currency. So not only did we trade to it, we traded through it and are still maintaining ourselves at the lower end. However, as we'll see here, we had a pretty nice cluster. This was from when we had the sharp up, sharp down, and then proceeded to fill out some range. So on the intraday data, right, that's our daily EC that we were just looking at there. But on this 120-minute display, pull this up just a notch here, is going to give us that same feeling, right, of the sharp up, sharp down that we were looking at on the dailies, and then we proceeded to come in and fill out some range. We put in a bit of a higher low, so any further down in this euro currency, just kind of noting or monitoring here, so 1.097 mark, since we had a couple tests and trades around that zone. So any further down would be monitoring those areas, see if that provides any footing for them. And then on the intraday data, such as like the 15-minute chart, still on the heavy side, hasn't really shown us that feeling of the loss of momentum or buy divergences. Here's the 5-minute display. Obviously, the bulk of the action taking place in the overnight session. So whilst we have, a little hint of a wedge or 3 pushes down, we'd be keeping an eye just to see if and when the 15-minute chart starts to ripen up. And all that would do is give us a little short-term reversion to the mean to perhaps then, pick up some additional steam and give them a better test of the 1.097 down below, but not a bad mover, if you would, as far as the euro currency goes, putting in some nice action there overnight. And then we have this the gold, which, to be quite frank, out of the groups here, one of the more tame out of the bunch. Gold, a good advancement it had, during the earlier portions of last week. We did have our 2 days down, or 2 days of high to low coming into the session from Thursday and Friday's trading. So we closed, briefly, not on the extended run as we've had in some of these other markets, but we have been working on a nice up move. So we tested down and closed back on the other side of the 5 SMA on Friday. And so far, very interestingly, the previous day's low, 2067.6, which we'll see in the intraday charts in just a moment, but holding so far above that previous day's low. However, that would be significant, right, the previous day's low, so if we were to breach that, that would be a different it'd be a different note there, if you would. But for now, holding their own, playing inside the past 2 days range as far as the daily charts go. A little bit more of a narrow range compared to, the euro currency, the bonds, or even our index futures. But when we come down here, this is our intraday data, the hourly chart. So good advancement, right? This is our little consecutive up bars that we had last week. Higher cycle lows, so no faulting the advancement. And then, as we know, it's been a slow process, but then we came down and started to put in slightly lower lows and lower highs. So we have one low, one low, one lower low, and then a second. So hence why this 2067 just is marked with a caution zone there, because should we breach that again, we'd be putting in yet another lower low, which would kind of change some of the standing, if you would, in the gold, but holding their own for now. They have a higher low and are just kind of rotating perhaps between the 2083 and the 2067.6. So a little bit of a window there for the gold to play inside there, but not half bad. And then we have the crude and the bonds here to kind of get ourselves all geared up for the morning, first day of the new year and everything. So here with the crude, also considering all else, not a bad mover in the overnight. Coming into the session here, we're up just a little under a point and a half. So with the crude, a little different in its structure. It did have the 3 days down, rather, right? So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, all red bars, if you would. So we did have some selling at the crude, and clearly overnight we were picking up some steam here and getting ourselves going back above. Rather interesting, the 72.53, which was just the cycle low from November 16th, but we have been doing some good amounts of trading around that point. So currently, we're back above it as well as the 5 SMA. But as we'll see, the 2-day high in the crude, 74.40. It's a little bit of a ways up there. And then also very nice to see on something like the hourly charts, right? We could put these side by side from the 3 days of red bars down. You can see we had pretty impulsive, through the area. So in the overnight session with the crude, we came up, did some repair work. Didn't quite get on the other side of 73.60, so that might still be a bit of a hurdle for the crude. But all else aside, if we were to, I know we just started the session, but if we were to close right here, we'd have ourselves a pretty nicely wide, balancing act, simply because we held above Friday's low, right? And so far today's Globex high is just beneath the Thursday high there. So right in between here with the crude, kind of wedged between these 2 points, broader points, and we'll keep an eye. 5 SMA also is in this vicinity. It comes in at 73.16, so around where we're testing here currently, but I think the hourly charts really helped put things into context here, the nature in which we, had our markup. So be a little bit weary or cautious here. This hourly chart has a little hint of, two-part wave up or ABC type of feeling here on the hourly chart. So just in case they want to roll over at all on the hourly oscillator, we'll see how they hold any type of consolidation or, pull back should they have one. But not a bad look for the crude for the time being, kind of holding its own considering all else. And then we have our exciting bonds here, right? Our 30s, which I pulled up the 23 there by accident. There we are. So bonds, we have them over here on the right-hand side as well, but that's okay. Picked up some nice action here as well. Be out on the 120-minute display. We'll do a couple things here with the bonds, but for starters here, we'll look at the dailies. Balancing act on Friday's close, right? That's our little circle up there. So 3-bar balance mode. Good extension that they had, remember, coming out of the box, and we departed from the 4% handle, which we'll look at here in a second on the yields, because we're back inside of that zone. They did not want to have them get the close below 4% on the year there, so they propped them right back up. So as far as the bond futures go, a little breakdown from balancing act, right? It's a ways down here on the daily charts, this 122.05 for the daily EMA. But as opposed to that, what we have is this nice structure here on the hourly charts. Could even put a little box thing in here just to kind of bring the attention to this prolonged zone that we had been building out for ourselves. Right, and then we got our nice movement outside the box. So as we come down here in the bonds any further, we can see that 123 even has provided us here with 2 separate data points there. So any further down, that would be a little bit of an initial supportive area or caution zone. If we don't hold that point, that's not going to be a very good look there for the bonds. So, opening up a bit. They've already had a good amount of selling pressure overnight, so we'll keep an eye. Also, if they have any signs of little buy divergences or anything forming on the lighter time frames, but not really so much the case. So as we come down in the bonds, we'd just be a little bit more weary here of the lower end of this 120-minute range. And then lastly here, for those who like keeping watch on these as well, we'll take a look here at the yields, right? So here's our on this little lower left chart here. Get this 4.0. That's close enough. 0.99 there. Once again, this is just marking the 4% handle on the yields, right? So we traded a lot around that zone last week. Look at all the bodies of the bars and the tails that they left beneath those points. So the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd all traded at those exact same points. They lifted them up above that, and then we had 2 days beneath 4%, and then we ended up closing the year back above it there on Friday. They propped them right back up there, and then we settled on Friday at 4.019. And then, of course, in the overnight session here, we have a gap up in the yields as the bond futures showcase some weakness. So for now, it kind of seems like the modus operandi there is keeping them just above that 4% handle for the time being basis those 30 years. So with that said, though, we got some nice levels and zones to be aware of for some of these groups. We're going to dial it back, kind of let some of these markets settle in here. And as we can see also, since we had some nice advancements in the overnight session, this will be a nice day to have our market profile view lined up for us as well from Damon, just so we can see any type of structural repair or points of interest that we'll have left from either one, the trading on Friday, or two, some of this activity from the overnight session or early morning Globex session. So should be rather interesting, and should be a pretty nice way to kick off our first full trading day of the new year. So we'll let a couple of these motions settle in, and we'll hop right back on as things start to develop a bit further in here. But a very happy new year to you all, and we're going to kick it off and make it a nice start for ourselves here to get this new year in play.